It's a good day on the mountain. Self, freedom, oppression, political discourse, economy of thought, an economy of thought. There's a lot here. Bear with me. So I was watching a psychology thought leader talk about 12 steps, 12 necessary elements of humanity. Pleasure, feeding and care of the body, sex, relationships, love, security, purpose, rest, beauty, awe, wonder, some involvement of a higher power, or the concept of a higher power, God, etc., and contentment, 12. And what was interesting to me is that I ruminated on these and I said, oh, okay, that's good, you know. And some of these are great, but then you would think, well, where do they come from? Where does the sense of contentment come from? A sense of rest, a sense of beauty, awe, of wonder. And then my thoughts were, well, nature, of course. As you know, I have a big bugaboo about getting out into nature. But then I thought, it's missing elements that I find crucial. And of course, it's going to go to the freedom of mind and the freedom of thought. And the concept that seems so simple, but on examination yields so much thought that is contrary to popular opinion and popular social and political discourse, even psychology discourse. And that is that the sense and social foundation, in my understanding, is the individual. And that individuals need to understand that, and they need to come to grips with the fact that they are, at least in our current political climate, still the source of their political power, their psychological power, their soul power, however you want to say it, their sense of self, should come from themselves, and they should be able to define it and understand it in their own environment and the environment around, so that my sense of self is not connected to someone's my identity to a group, or allegiance to a group, or even a presumed allegiance to a group, even one that I am visually attached to, you know, like a white dude, you know, attached to the Republican Party or something like that, so that even someone else could say that. So starting to think about how to define that and how to stand on these concepts so that they can then be, as you know, felt, thought, spoken, and affect change. As he says on the mountain with no one around, on videos that, on the internet that no one watches. But this is still good stuff for whomever watches this. This is really clear, or good stuff. So beyond contentment, I started writing my own ideas. And as you know, my agenda is not to be brilliant. My agenda is to analyze my thoughts and feelings as I have cultivated them within myself, and to see what pops up. Not to plant a seed purposely knowing what the seed is, but to see what is in the ground, what comes up. And I don't think these are weeds. I think these are good thoughts. And see how to ponder concept of freedom, the concept of self, and how this matures into these kind of thoughts. And how is it that these kind of thoughts they aren't in popular currency now? Like how is it that I'm able to come up with this and other people have in the past, but it's still not, it's not currency in the popular climate, social climate. So, okay. So we had the numbers, right? Pleasure, food, sex, relationships, love, security, purpose, rest, beauty, awe, wonder, higher power, contentment, right? And I was like, number 13, a clear mind with your own thoughts as an essential need for a healthy human. This was not on the list. Peace without interruptive thoughts. Someone else planting thoughts in your head that erupt later on. You're like, where did that come from? Why am I thinking about, financial theory or leadership theory or something? Why did that pop up? as you know, and I'm a big fan of rooting those out and finding out their source. And if I agree with them, well, then they stay. If I don't, they go out. Number 15, belief in one's own thoughts and actions. Just simply, and not randomly, not coming up with something that's like, hey, this is what I believe, blah, 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 right? And running off at the mouth or running off with an action, but to actually put it in your heart, your soul, your psyche, and to practice it. And then have a belief in this thought because you have practiced it and you believe in the outcome. So that it's not simply abstraction, it is a workable theory, right? Like for me, with sense of self, sense of freedom, to think about freedom is in itself, my position, an intellectual pursuit that has no deficit, right? That's my belief. The sun is on the lens. I'm trying to make sure it doesn't glare too much. All right, number 17. The ability to know and understand power structures hidden and visible, so that I can know the traps. And we should know the traps. And we shouldn't allow the traps to be there. As a free people who are open and who have the power and understanding of self and freedom, that traps are inherently dangerous. This is my belief. And we don't always talk this way. But as a free people, I think that just saying things like, oh, you should have known that before you signed the contract, that in itself is dangerous and doesn't belong in a free society. I know that it exists. I know that, but someone has put that structure in our political legal system to catch people. Well, catching people is inherently anti-freedom, in my opinion. 18, instincts, insight, thought, research, witness observations are used to corroborate people and issues. And this will be developed further on. But when I talked about freedom's ferment and how you can suss out whether someone is talking about oppression ideas or freedom ideas, and of course the snakes in our midst are never going to say, hey, I'm going to talk about oppression, and if you believe what I say, I know what the end is, and I'm lying to you right now by not even discussing this with you. But developing that sense of instinct to say, okay, and not just to be fearful, but to say, okay, I've come across this before, just overtly in your mind, just like, I've come across this before, 7 times out of 10, it's negative. And I have proofs along the way, and I have words to say, even if it's something simple as like that. Excuse me, I think this is suspect. I'm not going to participate in this until I have more information, and I will get the information. And to believe in this and have a system for standing on this and not backing out. Not saying, oh, well, I believe that the information you give me is good, and therefore, it's all rosy, and this seems okay. But as a person of self, and as a political center of power and legal power, I have to give myself and practice and give myself the tools to keep myself safe. Not simply because I don't want to be a fool, but because by keeping myself safe, I'm keeping others safe and helping to recorrect some of the alterations in society that are really placed by the snakes in our midst, psychopaths. All right, number 19. Build a path from doubt to belief in goodness. Now, I put goodness in there because I think that goodness and freedom itself are all the same concept. Because it could have been build a path from doubt to belief, and it could be in anything, in genocide or something like that. That it's okay to have doubt in a political structure or a social movement or anything like this. But to build a path, just like earlier, build on instincts and insight and research, so that you have both a spiritual component or a non-tangible component of of your thoughts, but that then become more tangible as you research them. Like you have a suspicion, it goes into, okay, I have a process, I will research this, I will research outside of this, I will give myself time to do this, I will not commit to something until I am 1,000% sure, or I'm sure enough. And to believe that that itself is good, because it empowers the self, the individual. Confidence in your process to meet strangers and determine over time how they can participate in your life. Some of these things are shades of the same topic, but to start to build in yourself, and for myself, how do you meet people and how do you determine essentially their goodness or their value to you? And simply saying no is not an answer, because that leads to, you know, other topics that we've discussed, and that is social isolation, reliance on third-party data, which is okay, but as long as it supports your beliefs on how to understand strangers and what their value is to you. Number 21, practice and believe in your own method of balancing cynicism and optimism. And this goes back to the previous one about a path from doubt to belief to goodness, is that it's okay to be cynical about some things, because and again, my structure for this is to talk about oppression versus freedom. So I am cynical about things that I have found to be steps on the path to oppression. And that is good for me to have that cynicism, because I've done the homework. You know, I've actually paid in psychological and physical blood for this. So I'm not kidding myself, and I'm not kidding you, and you shouldn't either. But that doesn't mean to dwell solely on the fact that we're seemingly surrounded by snakes, right? Because there's people like you and I out here who are talking about these things and at least thinking about these things. So when I hear people say optimism, what I hear is that there is goodness in the heart of people, and it can be culled out, but only among those people, and it's only beneficial to the people who understand the value of that. The snakes will take advantage of that, and the snakes will beat that up, and that will become a wilted part of someone's self. But in my economy of this, it should be a brazen optimism. I have the tools, I have the wisdom, I have the timing, I have the power to make optimism, read sense of self and freedom, part of my life and the defining part of my life. Okay, 22, belief and conviction in saying, I don't know. And believe in this as a valued positive stance. This goes back to the concept of the political concept and the economic concept of me self as this decision maker for things that matter to me. And that if I do not have the information or even the emotional stability, or whatever you want to call it, the emotional tranquility around a subject, I have the power and belief to say no. And to say it strongly and positively in a way that is, well, good, because it builds a sense of self, right? If you're in a car dealership, if you're in a car dealership and, you know, they're doing the fast talk with the stuff, and yes, I used to do that. You know, you should go in thinking I can walk out anytime and it's good. And just walk out anyway. Just walk out anyway. So encounter situations where you can say things or enter in discussions with people, and you can simply say with confidence, and it takes some practice to say, look, I don't know, and it's good for me to say I don't know, rather than babbling on and trying to win an argument that's not winnable, or being fooled into the first step of a how would you say, manipulative process, right? And what these snakes do is they try to get you on the emotional side, like, hey, look, you know, you've asked questions, I've given you everything you wanted, what more do you want? What more do you need? And they don't say it in a way that's informational, they say it in a way that's accusatory, right? And people who are soft, not soft like critical, but soft like that's where they are. They haven't built themselves yet. Will be like, oh, okay, well, and then they melt, right? Or they're not used to the hypnotic effect, or they don't know that they're being sold down the line. You know, it's similar to the guys who sell condos, you know, and you got to listen to the 3-hour presentation. Well, you know, they know that the 3-hour presentation is a breakdown event. It's a psychological warfare step to take time from someone. Therefore, they're committed to it, and they're weakened because they've spent so much time in this room listening to all of this gobbledygook. And they know that a certain number of people, regardless of their economic background or their training, will just yield to this. They just know this, so they just keep them in the room, right? Just keep them in the room, you'll get, you know, 15% more sales. So, but people who know the process, or if they don't even know the process, and they say, listen, I do not know what the resale value of this condo will be in 10 years. That is important for me. I don't think the information you've given me is satisfied. I am leaving. Bye. I do not know this, and it's good for me to say this. And some people would say, well, you shouldn't even state that. And I think stating that you don't know is a positive step, because it puts the snakes on the defensive. And if someone else hears that, they will be emboldened to say that. And in my experience, the people who are most critical about, oh, you're supposed to know everything, those are the guys who are the manipulators, right? We don't know everything. And someone who goes around collecting facts is usually someone to worry about, because true wisdom and knowledge is not simply a collection of facts. It's how does it serve the purpose of freedom, yours, economic freedom, social freedom, etc. And there needs to be a give and take. And people who understand that will say, yes, I understand you don't have all the information. What would it take for us to get to that step? And people who flip out about like, oh, you're supposed to know this. Well, yeah, that's probably not the case. Only in cases like like a surgeon who doesn't know how to do sutures, and that's a stupid example. But something that's technical is not factual, right? Not necessarily factual. It's just be warned of those things. Okay, so the ability to agree to disagree, our shared humanity can be greater than issue-based differences. Now, this sounds like Pollyanna, but if you start to believe that you are the center of your social, economic, political power, then when someone says to you, well, I disagree, or you disagree with them, then it's not a problem, because you're two humans trying to solve a problem, or just have a discussion, as opposed to someone trying to win over the other. And if you are truly two valued individuals, then you will understand that the winning one over the other isn't the point at all. It's the relationship and how we're going to share this earth together over the fences of neighbors or streets or cities or whatever. And that's what's so pernicious about electronic media, is that you can say all this stuff and just waltz off. And even if people think they know you by your whatever grouping you have in Facebook or Instagram or whatever that crap is, it can all be faked. It can all be artificial. And if it's not artificial, it's still not face to face, right? So anyway, all right, number 24, thought proofs. If we disagree, can we still shake hands? Can we share neighborhoods? Can our kids play together? Can we share meals? Can we wave at each other on the street? And what I mean by thought proofs is, if you're in a discussion with someone and you come across some emotional issue, probably on their side, because you're listening to this, you'll probably be like, or even yourself, is ask yourself the thought proof, like a litmus test. Like, have we encountered something that is so problematic that we're going to be distanced from each other? We're going to have emotional, not baggage, emotional eruptions that aren't necessarily going to be resolved here or now. And the point is to think about this like I don't know if people are ready to overtly discuss this. You say, because you'd reach a discussion and be like, or you'd have a discussion and you'd reach a point of contention, and the other person you'd start to see them bubbling up with negative energy, and you say, well, I hope we can still shake hands over this. Even that overture in this climate, they might shake your hands and such, but they probably won't really mean it. This has just been my discussion. And so I just think think about thought proofs, like, does this bring us closer together? So like, even when you're discussing things, what's their stance? Are they moving closer to you? After the discussion, do they mention things to you? Do they wave? Do they not wave? Do they avoid? These are all hints that something has come up, and it's probably not you, and it's probably not me. It's something kicking around, and we've talked about that in the past. I don't have a solution for it, other than because it's very likely that they are retreating because they don't know what next step to take, and they might not have that foundation that we're talking about now, that it's not a personal attack if I ask you what your political views are or whatever, because they're just not ready for that, because they're not used to that. They're ready to have themselves be attacked by identity, and sometimes even by unknown groups, and everyone's huddled in their identity group, taking shelter, and they're not used to this. So you have to really, in my opinion, you have to really be delicate about that, and use use topics sparingly, not to be too overt, but also not step back from the path of friendship, because ultimately that's going to be what we all need. It seems like we're recreating our connective tissue, or at least thoughts about recreating. The other number 25, and we've talked about this: to begin to believe in the conviction that it's always the individual over the group. It's always the individual over the group. That the individual is the most important element in your life and in other elements' life. Now, that does not mean, right? I feel like I shouldn't even explain this. I should dwell on this, try to develop your own thoughts about this, and what this means to you and to your social element. I'll just leave it at that. 26. Develop and practice engagements. So this is kind of like a scale, and of course this is non-electronic. You wave to someone with no words, like hello. You say their, and later on you say their name. Hi, Jim. Right? And then you ask a question. Next engagement. So it's kind of like a build-up, like, nice weather we're having, Jim. Right? See 2 points of information. And try to, for me, I'm kind of naturally detail-oriented. I've learned it really spooks people if I say something like, oh, I noticed you got a new car. And if I do 2 points, like, nice weather today, Jim, I noticed you got a new car, that seems to be too threatening. So my new MO is just one informational thing at a time. Nice weather today. And even saying, Jim, it could be okay, I don't know. And then also observe the reaction, observe whether it's distance, observe whether this person then says that to you later, because we all know that they're being reprogrammed back on the phone, and that real life face-to-face interactions are seen as an aberration rather than what the doctor really ordered. And sometimes it's medicine the patient is not going to agree with. The patient doesn't even know they need it. And so those of us who are listening to this, we know we need it, and we may not agree. You may not agree with my methodology, but it's gotten to this level that we just don't talk. And if we do talk, it's always within pre-approved safe environments, which I agree to initially, but not only, not just all the time. Oh, and of course, stay away from religion, sex, politics. And the one topic at a time. I've really found this in my personal realm, and friends and family and people I know on the street. I've recently met a bunch of new people through a job, and one topic at a time, one question at a time. It just seems to be out of spec to say, good morning, insert name. Isn't it lovely today? What would you like to do today? Or something like that. It just cross circuits people. They just they don't know how to answer it. It seems like very strange to me. It's like coming on too strong or something. So one topic at a time. Hi. That's it. That's your topic. Hi. Wait for the response. They will answer. Take it from there. Oh man, I know. It just seems like we're rebuilding, as I said before, rebuilding the connective tissue. And for me, it's about discussing the conviction of the importance of that as an extension of self. That, going back to the original list of the 12 elements of for a balanced humanity, right? So now that we've discussed this, which of these: pleasure, feed the body, take care of the body; sex, relationships, love, security, purpose, rest, beauty, awe, wonder, higher power, and contentment? Well, we could say relationships are what we've talked about. Maybe purpose, maybe security, pleasure of talking to people, maybe. Even though I think when they say pleasure, I think they mean like physically enjoyable things, like being in nature, or sitting in a comfortable couch, or having comfortable jeans, or something like that, or things that bring you pleasure, like, I don't know, a cup of tea or something temporal. Awe and wonder. Well, awe and wonder is often seen as being outside the body, but it could also be the awe and wonder of a friend, relationship, etc. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all this. It's just the point to talk about that when you start thinking about individual and freedom, the freedom of the individual and individual freedom, you start thinking in different ways than we've been taught, in different ways that are the common curricula. And I think it's crucial to understand that one is the liberation of the individual self, but also sharing that liberation with others can be strengthening, hopefully strengthening. I don't know, in theory, right? They keep telling me this. And and that what's unique about today's environment is we keep being reprogrammed back to the phone as opposed to back to the people. And that's why I keep babbling on. I always want to diminish. Why I keep saying these sermons on my mountain, because if someone stumbles across this, hopefully this encourages them to think in these terms and to start acting in this way. Because I'm not selling a book, and I'm not, obviously creating a YouTube channel, or anything like that. This is me saying this from conviction, personal and social. And I think that there's real gold in that. And I know that this will encourage the viewers. And my fear is that it's so out of spec that people won't understand it, because the context-dependent learning model is the prominent model. So, for instance, these thoughts that I have said today could be contained within a book. This could be a book. You could write a small little book on this. It could be part of a video series or something like that. Or it could be part of a podcast, blah, blah, blah. But I don't have the means, time, or patience to do that. But that doesn't negate from the message, right? And people will look at context-dependent learning and say, well, I saw this video online and there's 10 views, therefore it's suspect. Well, if that's your proof of, if that's your conviction in your proving process, well, yes. But I would say that this data is very good for ripening one's sense of self and freedom, and that you can pocket this information and take it to college. You can take this to the boardroom. You could take this to the street and to your living room. This is outstandingly versatile, powerful stuff. And as I said before, particularly Thomas Jefferson had some inkling of this when they started to write the founding documents of our political structure, that it's not groups, it's individuals, and that the purpose is, not to accumulate political power, but to disseminate power that comes from self. And that goes from the micro level, me, to my friends, and then also on the macro level, collected groups that acknowledge the power of the self. At least they should acknowledge the power of the self and the the sovereignty. So I really don't have more information. I try not to babble on, even though sometimes my additional postscript thoughts can be sometimes the best. I think we're done for the day. I wish you well. I hope to see you out there. I will take a little video tour of where we are today, because it's lovely. The snow is crispy. We got the fire going here. And this is the view. Not too shabby, huh? Not too shabby. And here's the lectern. All right. From the mountaintop,